Well, Laura, tell me how you and your mother Jan first became interested in becoming advocates for families dealing with sick loved ones.
Well, it really became a very personal story to us. We're usually a mother-daughter writing team, work in the entertainment industry. We actually were interns together at Lorimar and then at Warner's. And we never thought anything like this would be important to us. And all of a sudden, actually, two different things happened. The first one was my mom's mother, Elaine Sullivan, lived here in Chicago. We're here in Chicago right now, while we were out in Los Angeles writing. And she had a small stroke. And it was just devastating to us because she's my mom's mom. She's an only daughter, and I'm an only daughter. So it really was just the three of us for such a long time. And we got a phone call from the hospital one day telling us that she'd had a stroke and she was unconscious and she was in the ICU. Being in Los Angeles, you think, when can I get a plane out? What can I do possibly? So we talked to the nurse and we said, we don't know how many hours it'll be until we can actually get out. Can we please talk to her on the phone? And the hospital said, of course. It was before cell phones, and she certainly didn't have a cell phone. People were just starting to get them. So the nurse was kind enough to put the phone to Grandma's ear, and we just told her we loved her, and we told her to rally, and we prayed over her. We did everything that we could. And as Christians, that's just so important for us to have that connection, knowing that the Lord is there, but also knowing that we're there. And when we talked to her, her eyes snapped open, and she regained consciousness. And by the next morning, by the time that we arrived, she was sitting up, and she didn't really know what had happened to her, and there was some rehab to do, but she was fine. And the second time that it happened was we were back in California just working, and she was actually supposed to be going on vacation. She was going to be going on vacation for a week, and she said, "Fine, I love you," and she was going to Michigan. She was so excited about it with some of her friends, and we were just talking, and we didn't hear from her, but that was normal because she was on vacation. About 6 days later, suddenly we got this phone call from a hospital here in Chicago, and they said that she'd been admitted and that she was in intensive care and that we needed to get back as soon as possible. And we're going, wow, she's supposed to be in Michigan. Why is she in Chicago? And come to find out that she had fallen in the bathtub getting ready to go on vacation. She hit her mouth, and when she hit her mouth, she wasn't able to communicate. But she was totally awake, but she couldn't speak for herself at all, something that nobody ever thinks of. And here she was in the hospital, and then they called us a few hours later, and they said she'd suddenly gotten worse. We're trying. It was Easter weekend of all times. We're trying to get a plane out. We couldn't get a plane out fast enough. So we said, you know what, can you please just put a phone to her ear? No, you can talk to her in the morning. We'll try to rig something up. We don't have a phone in the ICU. And we said, please, there's got to be somebody with a cell phone, something. And this was a religious hospital. You just see all these ministers and people walking by, and here she's all alone. They were going to try to get something up to talk to her in the morning, and they said, you know what, I think she's doing a little better. She'll be fine, and we were going to get a plane out in the morning. They called us at something like 7:30 in the morning to tell us that she passed away alone. Promised myself I wasn't going to do this. But anyway, we found out that she'd been there for 6.5 days. They could have called us. They had her telephone number there. The hospital told us later she needed us. She didn't need you. As a family, not only did we want her to know that she was in our hearts, that we knew that we were trying to get to her, and she knew. She loved us. She loved the Lord. We know she was there. No question about it. She's there with him right now. But the thing is, she didn't need the hospital or a pastor walking around or a doctor and nurse holding her hand. She needed us. At that moment, we needed not only to talk to her and to be with her, even if it was only by phone, that would have been okay. We had that last time to be with her. We needed to pray with her. And as Christians right now, we needed to rebuke the enemy. We needed to rebuke what was going on. And we needed to pray life into her and resurrection life, and we couldn't. And after that, when we found out it had been that many days, we started, we're writers, we're researchers. Unfortunately, probably in this case, because we went a different direction. But we found out that there was no law against not notifying the next of kin. It was something that hospitals did because it's the right thing. It wasn't because they had to. So we figured out, what? There needs to be a law that says they have to call the next of kin. If they get too busy, I can understand. But just to get so lazy that they don't call. What we found out later was that she actually passed away because of a drug interaction. She was taking Kaylin. They gave her digoxin. Had we been on the phone with her, if they had just called us, when she was admitted, she would not have passed away, and certainly not alone. So that's why we started the next of kin law, which we wrote and enacted. Since we're writers, they thought, well, you know what, let's let the writers write it. Great. So we started, you know what that's like. So we started doing all the research that we could, and we worked with our wonderful California legislature and also Illinois. Figured we might as well enact it in both states. And I think to date there's something like 8 states where it's mandated that they need to at least make a conscious effort to call the next of kin within 24 hours if somebody's either admitted alone or is admitted unconscious. And now with the coronavirus, all of a sudden we just thought, you know, actually I'm probably getting ahead of myself. We wrote a couple of books afterwards. One is called Ready. We've been in a couple of disaster situations. We actually had an airplane crash across the street from us while we were still living in Chicago when I was 9. And my mom opened up the curtains and there's this yellow fire outside, and she closed it thinking, okay, I didn't really see what I thought I saw. And she opened it up again, and there was an airplane full on 737 jet sitting across the street from our house in a little neighborhood in Chicago, 2 blocks away from my school, half a block away from our house. And she closed it again, and the fireman was knocking on the door 10 minutes later. You have to evacuate, and you have to take everything that you can. You may never see your house again. There's a family of 4 at the time, and she's grabbing everything that she could. And a lot of people started asking us about that. Being residents of Southern California, earthquakes, wildfires, we really got used to this. So we found a lot of really great tools. But one tool that we also laid in our books, the first books were Get Your Stuff Together, Ready, and then Connected. Connected became the special book to us because it's how to stay connected with your loved ones, no matter what's going on around you. If you're trying to find something after a disaster, if you're trying to, we have a hospital patient in there because of grandma's story, that's how it starts out. What you need to know, what you have to have at your fingertips so you can keep your family safe and connected no matter what's going on around you. A couple of weeks ago, we saw what was going on with COVID. All of a sudden, there are stories every place, major media about people passing away alone. And we looked at each other, tears in our eyes, and we said, we have to do something.
Every time you hear about a person dying of COVID-19 alone, does it break your heart all over again?
It just makes us upset. As Christians, it makes us really upset. Because I think the one thing about grief and loss is, I don't know how much of this you want to use, but it opens the door to the enemy, we've found. It opens the door where loss can get in, where grief can get in, where it really shouldn't have been. Yes, we miss loved ones when they pass away. When they go to be with the Lord, we know that we're going to see them again. But when it leaves you wondering what I could have done, how I could have changed this, what I could have said, if we had been there, would she have lived? Would she have rallied? We will never know. And I think that's what we see right now in the news, is we see all these people. If you read some of the reports, there's fear. They keep saying the patients are so afraid. They're afraid that they're going to die, period, and they're afraid that they're going to die alone. We need that connection as people. It's marvelous that our doctors and nurses right now, we love, like my mom's doctors, we love our doctors so much. They're on the front lines, and they're still taking the time to hold a patient's hand and be with them if they pass away. But you know what, as wonderful as that is, they're not us. They're not your family. We knew that grandma, in her case, she really needed support. She needed somebody there to say, you know what, Elaine, you're going to be okay. You are going to be fine. You're going to live. We're going to be laughing about this next week. You're going to be fine. And when somebody needs that kind of support, which I think we all do, especially when somebody's ill and you don't get it, it's not good enough. It brings in this part where grief and loss can get in the heart where it shouldn't be.
Well, Get Your Stuff Together, COVID-19 edition is available right now. What are some tips that you wanted to make sure that you can share with families who are experiencing this?
Right now, I think the most important thing is to make it really easy for the medical staff to connect you with that patient. If you can't set foot inside, I know a couple of hospitals actually are outfitting people like hazmat workers and bringing them in anyway, which is wonderful. And if your hospital does that, ask. Make sure that you actually ask, is there any way I can possibly be with my loved one? And if they say no, okay, they're trying to protect you. I understand that, and you understand it as well. You want to keep your own family safe. The one thing that you absolutely need to do is make it super easy for that medical staff to connect with your patient. What we're doing is we're doing something called Information Central, which is one single piece of paper. It's in the book, and we also provide downloads. And you're basically writing in there your contact information. Now, even if you send a cell phone along with your patient, remember that You might not have access to that particular cell phone. Send a charger along with it just in case, because if your numbers are all in the contact information inside that phone and the phone dies, you might not have the numbers. Another thing is that the hospital may provide an iPad or telephone at your loved one's side to make sure that you can speak to them. Remember that you're only a phone call away, you're only a FaceTime away, they are not alone. You're right there, you're just a connection away. But what we found is in our book, we're giving people the advice that fill out a medical history form, which we also got in the book. A lot of people are going to hospitals that are not their own. They're going to be with doctors that they've never seen before. A lot of people are trying to say, here's my patient's medical history. They're not getting it. So make sure you fill out the medical history form just so you remember all the little blips and blups that your people have gone through the last couple of years. What vitamins they're taking could be very important, what medications they're taking. In Information Central is a one piece of paper, it's a grid. You can write down all of their medical information right there, just the highlights. Write down all of your contact information. Write down your telephone numbers, 2 or 3 telephone numbers in case you're not the original one. Write down your email address, your Twitter handle, anything that you can, or your FaceTime login if they need to use FaceTime. Put all of that up in that one grid. Also write down how your patient is going to want to communicate. Are they very verbal? Would they rather speak to somebody on the telephone or rather FaceTime? Do they really need to see somebody's face? We also have a couple of things on there, but what we're advocating right now. Put that piece of paper in an envelope along with a note asking the doctor or nurse to please tape that piece of paper up on top of their bed or on the wall right behind the bed so they cannot say they don't have it. Make sure a few things like the medical history forms go along with them, just an envelope. Put it on your loved one's chest if you need to. Make sure it goes there. And then make sure when they call you afterwards and they say, Uncle John is in the hospital now, say, fine, do you have that Information Central page? Make sure that's above that patient's. You can make one yourself if you need to. Put it up above that patient's bed and make sure that they have the information they need. Doctors and nurses are exhausted right now. They're not going to want to take the time to look for somebody's phone number or look for this or look for that. The easier you make it to be connected.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jack.